Pleasure to be here. I want to build off sort of the momentum that was gained earlier today when we started talking. Larry Keeley was describing innovation and the challenges and the different types of innovation. I want to be a little more stark about it because the realities are that there are a large number of very important changes going on in the way people think about innovation, the way that they're structuring innovation inside of corporations and in ecosystems, the people that they're hiring, the way that things work. And it's not a trivial set of changes. These are not small incremental changes. These are big changes. I want to talk today a little bit about the why. Why would people shift away from models that have been in existence for 60 plus years? If you want to go back to Edison, even longer, but certainly the models that we have for the past 60 years. And then the real story is in the how. It's not just going to be me talking, although the initial presentation will be me. Then I'm going to bring a couple of folks up that actually live and breathe this in incubators, and you'll get a chance to hear the gritty details about what in fact is happening, why it's happening, and the changes that are occurring. So let me start with a very simple diagram that lays out how innovation is done, and I don't care what type of innovation it is. If it's done properly, it has a flow to it and a certain logical consistency. In particular, there are business goals. For instance, we want to grow at 20%, even though industry average is 10%. This is a growth that we expect to do through organic innovation as opposed to merger and acquisition. Well, then that would then set the basis for an innovation strategy that would say, well, we're going to change business models and technologies. Anything's open. We'll go around the world. We'll use reverse technology. The innovation strategy lays out the ground rules for the innovation that will occur. And then there's an operational model that's built around that. And in that, you build your organization, pull in your resources, set the processes that will allow the execution to occur and lead to execution. And that then leads to the profitable growth that you were after. Having done this for many years, about 30, and having a database of over 1,000 benchmark companies and about 1,200 transformations from PRTM, a very important observation can be made, which is that how you innovate determines what you innovate. Innovation is a path function. How you move through the exploration phase, identifying ideas, the type of people you have involved, your processes for portfolio management, project selection, product development, for governance and review, and even for killing projects, have a significant effect on what types of innovation you get and how much innovation you get. Or said differently, if you're not happy with the quality and quantity of innovation that you're currently getting, you'll need to change something about your innovation processes and organization in order to get an improvement. You can't just push harder on the model. This is an important observation because it leads to some very interesting observations about why change occurs and how. Now, this is important. Imagine a system that's been set up as it has for the past 60 years. I use that number because it's about how long we've been using the models. And it's been aimed at products, as Larry was saying, a huge amount of effort. It's all been around products and with pretty much in existing business models. And you've hired people, you've set up an innovation operational model, and all of a sudden, you find that the world has changed. You're coming out of a very significant financial downturn. Companies wish to grow at rates much higher than they have historically, and possibly into whole new areas, both technologies and business models. There's a range of big changes taking place. And so what they have been doing in many cases is pushing on the model that they've built over 60 years that was set up for incremental product innovation. And lo and behold, they're not getting the results that they expect. What they're seeing are a series of symptoms. The exploration for new ideas doesn't go far enough. Idea generation's unfocused. Partners aren't getting leverage. There are a lot of internal struggles between the organization and the innovation groups. The priorities are befuddled. And the net result is, out of all these symptoms of a problem, the business goals that were set out, the high growth areas, are unrealized. Market position often deteriorates, or it's certainly threatened. There are missed growth opportunities. Costs of R&D continue to go up. I think the pharma industry is probably a classic example where you can see the costs going up and the returns going down, although they're hardly alone in that regard. And there's generally a lower return on investment. Now, that's happening more and more. I can point to one particular example that happened 25 years ago when this type of thing happened, this kind of phenomena happened, where the company was challenged and needed to find a way out of that and needed to move from, say, the traditional product approach to much more of a solutions-oriented approach. But I can also point to something, a conversation last week in Silicon Valley with one of the premier firms who is also facing challenges like this, where growth is just not happening fast enough. The models set up to deliver growth that have worked well in the past are not yielding the results. And having done the analysis, let me tell you what some of the root causes are. I mean, I think it's important to talk about the problem because we're going to talk about a solution in a moment too. One is an anchoring. There is a preoccupation with current markets and existing offerings. People are focused on their existing products with existing business models, and it tends to anchor them in one spot. There are also the wrong metrics and motivators in place. Execution and activities are rewarded based on short-term activities. This is the quarter-to-quarter profitability and the year-over-year growth gains that are maybe very appropriate for existing businesses, but can bedevil any innovation effort if they're held accountable to that same effort. And the individuals involved in the business are basically measured on their quarter-to-quarter growth. And there's not enough value placed on high-level growth. There are also misaligned goals. The business model emphasizes profits and earnings per share, which are not necessarily what you want to focus on if you're after new growth innovations. The PE, EBITDA would be a much better way to do it. There are gaps in the established processes for actually generating the new ideas and for selecting, experimenting, terminating, and nurturing new ideas along. The old models were very much around a strict governance process. A stage gate is often used where decisions are made, but it's very focused on crisp decisions, not necessarily looking for the next big thing. And this has plagued a lot of companies. And then finally, there's always the problem of faulty execution. But when the model is so badly flawed, it really doesn't matter whether you execute badly or not. I mean, the truth is you can't get the kind of breakthrough innovations to drive the growth that companies are after with an operational model that's simply set up for small incremental growth. It just won't work. And so what's happened is that companies have bumped into this barrier and have begun to realize that they face some significant problems. And basically traditional innovation is feeling huge pressures because of things like they keep missing the next new thing. And I didn't pull that out abstractly. I can tell you of 3 firms that have said, this is our problem. Our competitors seem to be coming up with the next new thing. We'll follow fast, but we're not getting it. Why? There's something wrong. The best people seem to always be focused on the core businesses, and it's often hard to attract and retain the talent inside the corporation around the new activities and the high growth opportunities. There are significant challenges to creating growth in a core. If you have a very large business, you can grow at small incremental levels, but you certainly can't produce the kind of growth you're after alone in that area. The competitive challenges alone will get you. You need new areas. And management grows increasingly frustrated, in part because of the other things that were mentioned. But there's another aspect. More and more the management team gets called up to fight fires, to understand why things aren't working and to pull together a special team to go and fight it. So the reason I'm bringing out the problems is that you have to understand that what's happening is a realization that while the current model is excellent for incremental growth for existing products, it's not good for breakthrough growth. Now, before you assume that I'm thinking that incremental growth for existing products is bad, that has a lot to do with maintaining market share and margins in the current businesses that exist. If you've launched a product 5 years ago, it may be mature and you might want to do significant incremental improvement. Apple does this with their iPod and the Nanos and the iTunes and various things like that. Small changes to hold the competitors at bay, maintain the margins, and continue the revenue stream. So in no way am I suggesting that that model is wrong. It's just that it's not designed to deliver the breakthrough growth that companies are looking for. And as the growth results continue to frustrate management, there is experimentation. And we've reached a point in the world of innovation, inside of companies, but in broad ecosystems, where we are beginning to innovate how we innovate, which we should have figured out a long time ago, but it strikes me that we only recently realized as innovators that it's time to change the process. But it came from these frustrations. Again, I point them out because you should get a sense of what's being done, what's driving the change. Now, these new innovation engines are evolving. That's actually in past tense up there. It's not quite right. It's a work in progress, as you'll learn as we go forward. And there are some places where people have designed new approaches, new engines to avoid these entanglements from the core business. And they've done it by going over the heads of the business units. And that's something that we've all seen at various times, which are the special initiatives. We're pulled together a team and we're going to go chase a special new growth area. And they're chartered and they're given a lot of fanfare and they don't usually work. And it's certainly not a sustainable approach. It's an interesting way to go about it, but it doesn't work. Nonetheless, those have been tried. They also try going under the radar. Now, the best example I can give you of that is the 20% free time that Google has. You're aware that they allocate their people 20% free time. This, by the way, they borrowed from 3M, who only gave 15%, but Google made it 20. However, let me tell you two stories. The first is at Google, if you ask someone, as I have, I know many people there work there, what they do with their 20% of the time, they laugh because they say, well, we already work 7 days a week. How can I get 20% free time to work on whatever I want? So they're a little frustrated with the idea that there really is free time. What it is the company saying, keep doing your regular job, and if you come up with something new that works, we'll do it. But that sort of puts it, if you will, under the radar. It takes it away from direct competition with the core. And if you go to 3M, which, as far as I know, only has one significant breakthrough innovation from over 30 years of the 15% free time rule, and that is Post-it notes. And it was brilliant. And I know Art Fry, who was the developer of that, and I know the people involved, or at least several of them. And you know, as good as that was, and as powerful an innovation as that was, it nearly got killed 3 times inside the corporation because it was a different product and it was a different business model. The first reactions were, can't you turn it into a tape? Because what does 3M make? It makes Scotch tape and masking tape and things like that. They understood how to sell tape, but they didn't understand how to sell this. So we'll talk more about it. But the idea is that a program that's meant to create innovation on the side doesn't always work, or at least it's not predictable and it doesn't yield the kind of growth that most companies have been looking for. The last approach is the one where I really want to focus. It's attempts to recreate the innovation engine that go either around the business unit, the core business, or through it in some way that it doesn't perturb the business unit as much. It's much more of an approach to try and bypass the challenges, the organizational antibodies that come out from a core business when you try to create a new business, an innovation. And let me tell you, there are such things as organizational antibodies, and the bigger the proposed innovation, the change, the more the antibodies come out. And they don't necessarily attack the innovation or the business group involved in it. It may be subtle. They may cut funding or restrict funding or slow things down, but the net effect is that organizational antibodies have been the death of a great many innovations that have been tried. And if I can be so blunt, inside of corporations, the business unit is often positioned as the enemy of innovation. It shouldn't necessarily be that way, but some war or some antagonism seems to set up almost naturally between the business units that are the core business and the innovators that are attempting to create the new business that will take the company to the next level. And this is a major challenge. But let me tell you that incubators are one of the best examples of going around the traditional business units, and I'd suggest that corporate ventures are as well. In fact, I see them as sort of sister elements attempting to do the same thing here. Open innovation is another approach. Open innovation says use people outside the organization to be able to accomplish your innovation. That tends to reduce the antibodies. Venturing has the ability to fund and find folks outside. Incubators are special little places I'll describe here because they have some particular successes in major corporations that make them noteworthy. So let me describe the characteristics of incubators and refer to these as VCP3. I'll describe the letters in just a moment. But the first thing to consider is the vision. And this is important, not just because you need an aspiration to be innovative, agreeably you do, but the truth of the matter is that the aspiration, the vision, should set out what's inbounds and out of bounds for the innovation. It's just not a good idea to set people loose and say, come up with the next new thing. I was around Apple in the 90s, and they did that down in Cupertino, and it was probably one of the largest amounts of money ever spent, and all that came out was the Newton. So I rest my case. Just saying go do the next new thing is not. An incubator is aimed at creating specific levels of growth in various ways. Some, like Cisco, say create the next new billion-dollar business. They don't mean in a year. They mean something that will grow into a major new area. Others have a little bit more constrained approach towards what they'll incubate and what they'll try to do, in the sense that it doesn't have to be a billion-dollar business, but it should be something off the core. Not something that's easily done from a core business standpoint. Vision is very, very important because in any innovation that's been talked about today, whether it's on the energy side or it's consumer goods or it's medical devices, the fact is there are tens of thousands of decisions that need to be made. And without a clear vision of what's inbounds and what's out of bounds, the organization almost certainly starts to veer off and go in different directions. Certainly it dissipates its energy by focusing on things that don't matter or by funding activities that won't pay off. The second is cadence. It's a very interesting thing about what makes incubators work. They run at a different clock speed than the regular corporation. And yes, it's fast, but it's not just fast, it's also lots of small steps. It's interesting that the most successful incubators are the ones that move extremely quickly through prototyping and through testing key ideas very, very rapidly and then moving on. Now, we really shouldn't be surprised at that because if you think of Edison and the light bulb, I mean, what could be more germane to innovation than Edison and the light bulb? They both are held out as examples. He made that light bulb work by going through at least 62 different elements for that filament until he hit upon tungsten, trying each one, testing it, prototyping it, seeing how long it lasts, found the problems with it, and then said, and then went on to the next until he found the winner. So prototyping, rapid development is absolutely key. And another learning that we've stumbled upon, if you will, refound, is Enrico Fermi described why this rapid prototyping works so well. I personally hate I sort of bristle at the idea of fail early and fail fast, because the fail term just chokes. I mean, this isn't failing. Fermi said when you test a hypothesis, there are two possible outcomes. If the results fit your hypothesis, you have data. If the results don't fit, you have a discovery. And that's what rapid prototyping is all about. Now, you know the Dyson vacuum cleaner, the bagless one? I'm sure you've all seen it. It's a work of art. It's a piece of design. It's also an engineering wonder. There is an example of cadence. Dyson executed 5,721 prototypes over 4 years before he commercialized it. That's the kind of breakthrough innovation cadence that's important. So don't dismiss cadence as just, oh, you work hard and you go fast. There's something inherent in this idea of having teams focused on what's the next question, how do we solve it, how do we prototype it, where do we go? The best teams use this. But we've got a vision, and we've got cadence. How do you really make it happen? And the answer is, well, this is a people business, without a doubt. And what kind of people do you need? Well, you need entrepreneurs. And you know, it's interesting, and I use the term advisedly, these are people that can work inside of an organization but be entrepreneurial. And I should tell you that there are fewer entrepreneurs than there are entrepreneurs, at least at the moment. We might discover a cache of them or learn how to train them. But at the moment, those people that can understand how to be entrepreneurial and still leverage the capabilities inside of a company, which is one of the things that an incubator can do. The understanding of the technology, the market understanding, the ability to read and understand channels and the like. This is extremely important. So the people side is big from a standpoint of who's inside, but another aspect is incubators are extremely lean. They have very few staff, and so they inherently depend upon outsiders. You can call it open innovation, you can call it many things, you can call it an ecosystem, which it certainly is, but it's partnering at its best. For those that provide the insight to the customers, the technology capability, the subcomponents, the understanding of the market, whatever it might be, the partners come and they get orchestrated in such a way that the group moves very fast with very little overhead and certainly not much staff level. So the people are absolutely essential. Now, place is important, and by the way, I'm not talking about the physical environment, although there are lots of data that point to the fact that you're more creative in certain environments than you are in others. And so there's a little bit of that touchy-feely aspect. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a place where you focus. And what they're often called as platforms, Larry Keeley mentioned before, it's not the product area. It's the place that you innovate where you say, what does a solution look like? What's the new business model as well as the new technology? How do I create value? And so platforms are the focus area that innovation takes place. It's a little bit of a mental map, but you need that. It couples with the vision very nicely. It's a step down from the big vision, and it says, where are the areas that we will make the innovations happen, and how will we move them forward? There are even recent examples, thinking about the social networks piece that came first this morning, of platforms where this happens. Think about Nike Plus, which is a social network of users of athletic. It's unbelievable input to Nike to understand what these people want out of their products and the next new ideas, or even a better one, what may be Apple's single best innovation ever, which is the SDK. The software development kit, which is the platform that allows the 250,000 applications to be built. Now that's that's a partnership, and two, it's a place. It's a platform for applications development that allows participation in a way that's never happened before. So creating the right place for your innovation is extremely important. It's not an abstract concept. You have to know what it's going to take to make it work. The last part is process. And there are so many things I could say here, but I did want to strike quickly on a couple. One is, I laugh because it's one of my favorite. I'm looking for my notes, which I think I set right here. One of the most important things about process is saying no. Incubators are focused, and you have to say no a lot based on the vision and based on the place. There are a multitude of ideas that will come to the incubator. They may or may not be appropriate. You have to be rigorous and disciplined. Now, I've mentioned Apple. I'm going to incur Steve Jobs' name here one second, just because I love this story. When Mark Parker took over as CEO of Nike, he happened to have Steve Jobs there, and he asked him for some advice. And I wanted to read Steve's comment because I think it sets this next piece up. Quote, "There's one thing I want to tell you. Nike makes some of the best products in the world. People lust after them. Absolutely beautiful, stunning products. But you also make a lot of crap. Just get rid of the crap and focus on the good stuff. Now, while that may sound a sort of trite way to provide guidance, it's actually at the heart of a lot of what's made Apple and other places that use this approach wildly successful. And that is, they have a very discerning eye on what it is they're trying to accomplish. And it's connected to their vision. That vision, again, makes it clear what is inbound and what's not. The truth is that any given innovation activity will get more ideas coming at it than it can handle. The problem is that most groups allow in the mediocre ideas and allow them to sit there and soak up resources and time. And in fact, mediocrity crowds out the great. So incubators that are most successful are highly disciplined in making sure that they drive for the very best according to their vision and consistent with their overall goals. And that may sound easy to do. As it turns out, it's one of the most difficult things to do. The other things I'll mention about process are you need governance. Incubators do not run on their own. There's no amount of innovation that happens without good cross-disciplinary governance. And you need metrics. The best have some metrics, formal or informal. So there's one last piece that we're going to explore in the panel discussion later. Transitioning from the incubator as you go through your processes, transitioning over with a new business concept that's been proven to the business unit is one of the biggest challenges that we face. Remember I mentioned the organizational antibodies that can make things difficult at the beginning? Well, they raise their head again at the point when new businesses, particularly ones with new business models, but also those with new technologies, are brought back into the fold again. It causes all kinds of difficult reactions. We want to explore that some more. And this is an area that's still a work in progress. Much of what I mentioned before, we have good solutions for. This one, there's still a little bit of work to be done. But the incubators, by and large, have proven themselves to be extremely successful. And I would point to such companies, many of them are here, Philips, the Hartford, IBM, HP, and go down to Cisco, can go down a long list of companies that are using incubators very effectively and can point to wins. The list is much longer. I just use an abbreviated form. So you know you need a non-traditional approach, an incubator, a corporate venture capital. If basically you're not getting the growth that you're after, if you are finding yourself stuck with competitors beating you to the next new thing, if in fact you find yourself with what I call rampant incrementalism, your program is entirely set up to give you small incremental changes, if you are not checking to make sure that you're being very selective about what you grow, if you don't kill projects often enough. Basically, if you have these kinds of symptoms, you need to change how you innovate. It's not sufficient to simply push for executional rigor or something like that. You have to focus on basically innovating your innovation system. And if you have an incubator, these are the things that make it work. It has to be fast. We've talked about that. It has to be discriminating, saying no. It needs to be diversified so it's not just a one-trick pony. It needs to be focused on commercial success. It needs to hold the organizational antibodies at bay. It has to be an attractive place. If you're not attractive to the people inside your corporation as a place to work, and those outside in the ecosystem, you've done something wrong. You simply won't exist. This is, in part, a people business, and it has to be attractive. And you need to be an orchestrating force in the ecosystem. You need to be affecting all of the other portions of the area that will be impacted by your ecosystem, the other suppliers, the B2B functions that will be important aspects of it. So those are the elements that are absolutely essential. And if a company finds itself in a situation where it simply doesn't see that it's going to get the growth, if the CEO, in essence, is up at night because growth isn't predictable, nor is it sufficient, then moving towards one of these non-traditional models, or more likely, combining several of them. such as the incubator, corporate venture capital, and open innovation, is the logical choice to go, because you simply can't fix things by just pushing harder on what you have.